Hello, this is Last Westerner speaking from Poland. So, March 1968, 50 years from the last Jewish pogrom in Poland. Well, it wasn't so dramatic, nobody actually died that I know of, but it was the last Jewish banishment. Definitely the description fits the events of 50 years ago. But let's back a year prior. In June 1967, a young nation of Israel managed to defend itself from three aggressive Arab neighbors who planned to destroy the Jewish state and drive Jews into the sea. The Six-Day War commenced and Israel emerged victorious, crushing first Egypt, then Syria and then Jordan, which ignored Israeli pleas and joined the Arab invasion to be crushed and defeated. Israel used actually second-rate French and British equipment and armaments, while the Arab states used modern Soviet weaponry, including the state-of-the-art Soviet fighter MiG-21. Yes, Soviet Union was backing the Arabs. Israel wasn't even supported by the United States. US had an embargo on exporting arms to Israel, which was only lifted after the Six-Day War. And yet, little Israel emerged victorious, and this remarkable event aroused havoc in the communist bloc. How did they dare, those Jews, to defeat our Arab allies, those evil Zionist imperialists? Fast forward to March 1968 in Poland. Students in Warsaw spontaneously began protesting against the communist regime, which did not deliver what it had promised. The regime immediately responded. The protests were crushed by the militia, as police was called back then in communist Poland, and propaganda began rolling. The communist authorities accused the Jewish element of being the cause of the anti-communist protests. They used the term Zionist fifth column and accused people of Jewish descent of subversion and anti-state activities. Not only that, but also the State of Israel was viciously attacked as an imperialist tool, a genocidal wart trying to ethnically cleanse Palestine of Arabs, and basically Israel was called an ally to Nazis, because every enemy of communism had to be a Nazi. So Israel was a Nazi state according to Soviet communist propaganda, and all of this stuff appeared in Polish communist press and media. So-called journalists wove such strong anti-Jewish and anti-Israeli accusations into their venomous articles, which were used to attack all anti-communists as basically enemies of the nation. Yes, as some sort of an alien group, ethnically separate from the real Poles, because real Poles would never, ever betray socialism and the People's Republic. Due to all those persecutions, many Poles of Jewish descent were forced to leave Poland. They were also stripped of their Polish citizenship by the communist authorities. Intellectuals, lawyers, doctors, journalists, and other talented people oppressed by communist dictatorship were basically thrown out of the country under the pretext of them not being Polish enough, not being really dedicated to the cause of Polish socialism. That's how communism and authoritarianism in general rules, by dividing society into fragmented groups and then taking care of the minority groups, abusing their weakness and their separation from the majority. So it will use all kinds of sentiments among the populace to fuel its divide-and-conquer tactics. In Poland of 1968, it was anti-Semitism and the Jewish descent of some of anti-communist protesters, having a powerful propaganda machine in state-owned media, it wasn't really hard to create an anti-Jewish hysteria and hurry innocent people down. Also, you should notice that there's this pernicious myth that communism is a Jewish invention and Jews run communist countries. Well, you can clearly see it's complete rubbish. Jews were as much victims of communism as any other nation in Europe, and in March 1968 in Poland, they were the main victim of communist repressions. So those events remain to this day the last major banishment of Jews from a European country in the last century. Thank you for listening. Tel Chai, Chine Matov.